Okay, this is kind of a crash course on how to be able to cut this guy out, clip him out, silhouette him. I want to separate him from the background. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure the history palette is open. That's my ability to do multiple levels of undo. It's found underneath the window. The main tool I'm going to need is this quick selection tool, which sometimes is buried under the magic wand, but you don't really want that. You want to use the quick selection tool. This tool functions based on how big the brush is. Right now it's showing a 100 pixel brush, and it's also showing that the edge of the circle, it's a fairly hard edge. Well, it's 100% hard, or I could go back and set it to be 100%, 0% of the hardness, so it's really fuzzy. Normally when you're clipping something out, you want to keep it toward the hard edge. It is always easier to soften the edge after the fact. Trying to harden or make the edge crisper afterwards is nearly impossible. So I'm going to start off. This tool has a plus symbol on it right in the middle of the circle. If I add the little up, which means I can continue to add to my selection. If I hold the little bitty option button down, I know you can barely see this, but the icon changes actually to a minus symbol. So I'm going to start off by rubbing across the guy. That's my first part of the selection. And now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to grab his pants or his jeans. Excellent. I see that I didn't get the tip of his shoe, so I'm going to go back and get that. I also see that I didn't get the tip of this shoe, but my brush is actually bigger than the toe of the shoe, so that's not going to work. So I'm going to make the brush size smaller by hitting the open bracket key. Now that it's small enough, I'm going to grab that. A quick way to be able to see how well you've done on this is to hit the Q button. This turns you into the quick mask mode and shows you what the selection is like by throwing some random green, red, or orange up. I'm going to zoom in, and now I'm going to move around on my selection, and for the most part it did a really good job. Seemed to have grabbed just about everything, except I now see that it didn't grab all of the sole of the shoe because it's too close to the background color. It didn't do a great job on the laces here, and it also missed this part of the shoe. So to fix that, I could hit Q to get out of the quick mask and try to go back and make a selection here. The only problem is, again, on some of these areas the color is pretty close to the background, so I may or may not have great success with that. So the other thing I can do is put myself back in the quick mask mode, and I can paint from here. In the quick mask mode, the tool that I use is I move up to use the brush tool, not the history brush tool, but the brush tool. And I either paint with black or with white, not any kind of shade of gray. If I paint with black, I need to make my brush size smaller. If I paint with black, I'm going to actually add green to it. So if I did this, I'd actually cut into the mask that I made. I'm just going to hit Command Z to undo that. But if I paint with white, it actually allows me to clear some extra part of that mask away. I'm going to go back in here and paint a little bit. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to see that I could probably clean this up a little bit. I'm going to move on over and I'm going to add a little bit more white to get rid of this a little bit. The other thing I'm just going to do while I'm here is I'm going to take a look at his jeans. This happens when you're posing a picture. You have some extra wrinkles here that really aren't necessary and probably get in the way of the entire drawing. And they don't look bad when it's on a background, but when you cut the person out to put it on a solid blue background or a solid white background, these might become noticeable. So this is a good time too in the quick mask mode to use a brush and to come in here and maybe just cut off, get black, cut off a few of these wrinkles to try to smooth some of this area out. Otherwise they may start to look kind of odd. Even if that means cutting into the jean a little bit, if I help smooth the whole thing out. I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to smooth out maybe not so big of a bump here on the back of this thing. And the main reason I'm doing this too, here, this area by his pocket, just doesn't look as smooth as it could be. The main reason I'm doing this too is because this shoulder blade, the way it's positioned, it almost looks like he has a hunch or something like that. It's just the way that they have the shoulder blades positioned in the picture. It's twisted around and this looks unnatural. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to definitely smooth that little bulge out a little bit so that it looks a little bit better. On this particular one, I'm not going to worry too much the fact that I didn't get all of his hair. It's going to look just fine for what we're trying to do. And when I'm done, I hit the quick mask mode. I zoom back out. And then at this point, if I'm ready to do So on my drawing, I come back in here and I should have already made sure that I'd copied the background. Now I move over on the background and I come down and I find this icon down here, which is called Add a Layer Mask. And if I click on that, boom, I get this little teeny mask beside it. Everywhere where it's black is going to cut out. Everything that's white is going to stay. So if I turn this off, I'll be able to see that if I was to go into Photoshop right now and save this as a Photoshop file, which it's already going to want to pick because I have multiple layers in it, and I save it somewhere, that I'd be ready to be able to pop that into InDesign or Illustrator or something like that, and he's already cut out. And again, you can kind of see where I smooth the shoulder out a little bit. So that's one way when everything seems to be working for you. I did combine the quick mask mode for some small edits that the quick selection tool wasn't able to grab on its own, but it did a pretty nice job overall. And once it's saved, I'm done on this one.